Now from WATN, it's Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome to Local 24 This Week. Hope you're having a great Easter Sunday, and thanks for joining us. We're excited to tell you that from now on, you can get the real story behind the big stories twice on Sundays, not just at 9 a.m., but now also at 10:35 p.m. We think that's twice as nice and hope you will join us either in the morning or at night, or heck, why not join us both times? Today's topics, the Mueller report, of course. We're going to talk about how our locally elected congressmen and women and senators are reacting to the findings of the 22-month investigation. School vouchers in the news this week, a big topic. Rural lawmakers win a concession that got the governor a couple more votes to pass his hallmark legislation, as the state's attorney general refuses to give his opinion if the program is even legal. And the race for Memphis mayor. New campaign fundraising numbers for the first quarter reveal interesting results among the top-tier candidates. We'll talk about that as well. Otis Sanford, Susan Adler-Thorpe, and Reverend Ken Whalen will be here a bit later. But before we get to any of that, I am pleased to have Republican Congressman David Kostoff with me to go one-on-one. Thank you, Congressman, for being here. It's been a while. We always like having you on the show. So I have to ask you about the Mueller report first, not only because you're in Congress, you have a significant voice in that, but as a former federal prosecutor, you had tweeted and issued a statement yesterday when the report was released, as we record this on a Friday afternoon, that you thought Attorney General Barr, you repeated what he said, that there was no collusion and no obstruction of justice. Now, the actual reading of the report shows, and many people say, well, is it really that simple, that it may be more open to interpretation there, especially on the obstruction of justice claim, than perhaps some would like or that the Attorney General would like? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I'm reading the report. It is still reading the report. It's over 400 pages. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. A couple things. As you know, it's broken into two parts. One is involving Russia, one is involving obstruction. There is no collusion. In fact, I think the term that Mueller uses, he says collusion is not the right term, it's really conspiracy of laws. It is very fact intensive. If anybody has the chance to read it, and it takes a while to go through it, it's very intensive. But the bottom line is, when this investigation started, there was concern about the Trump campaign interacting with Russia during the 2016 presidential campaign. If anybody reads it, read the whole volume 1, you don't have any fear that that happened. Now, that's not to say that Russia didn't try to interfere in the election, but the issue is whether candidate Trump, President Trump, anybody with the Trump campaign had anything to do with it. The answer is no, and it's a solid no.
Okay, the obstruction question, though, seems a little less tight. Would you agree?
Yeah, well, no.
Okay.
And here, I've read the conclusion, and going through all the facts, here's the bottom line, is that Bob Mueller, who's the special prosecutor, special counsel, had a lot of authority. And if he wanted to ultimately come to the conclusion that the president had obstructed, he could have done so, and done so definitively in that report. He didn't. And I'm going through the facts.
Does Congress need to bring Mueller in and talk to him? Would you support that?
You know what, if a committee wants to do that, I say that's fine. Now, here's the issue, and you kind of lead into what are the next several steps. If I were Speaker of the House, I'd say, look, Bob Mueller was charged with doing what he did. He used 19 government lawyers. He had 40 FBI agents, issued 2,800 subpoenas, did 500 witness interviews. We as a Congress can't investigate any more thoroughly than Robert Mueller did, and this is the book, and it goes to bed. And I will tell you that I hope that that is the case, because we've got a lot of issues that we need to address in Congress, and frankly, if some of the committee chairmen decide that they want to go down that road, it's going to take time away to address these issues that people sent us to Washington to address. So I hope that they don't do it. Now, politically, Richard, if if some of those Democratic chairmen in the House decide that they want to do it, they're handing the election to Donald Trump, I'm convinced, in 2020, and Republicans will take over the House because they won't get any further conclusion-wise than Bob Mueller did in his report.
If there was no obstruction and if there was no collusion or conspiracy, no crime, do you feel, after reading all the details, and I know you're not all the way through it yet, are you concerned about unethical behavior by the administration and his inner circle, wrongdoing of any kind?
No, I think the report clears him, and if it didn't clear him.
Well, I believe he's cleared, but I'm just saying, any of those details that we've heard about, him telling the White House counsel, for example, not to tell the truth, if we believe the McGahn's comments, that the number of things that have come out, the issues with Russia and Russia's reach into the political process, do any of those things concern you or strike you as wrongdoing, if not a crime?
No, I think that when we've had a bird's eye view for 2 years. This investigation's been thoroughly covered. I think that that everything's been handled appropriately, and I say it's time to move on.
If handled appropriately, then would you disagree with the characterization that it was a witch hunt or a hoax?
Well, I think it's gone way too far, and too many resources have been devoted. But at the same time, it's done. I don't look in the rearview mirror, I look forward. And that's why I hope that over the next year and a half, we can legislate instead of investigate.
Are you concerned about Russia's reach? As I look at it and everything that I've seen about it, put the politics aside, Russia really, some have said that it had almost a 9/11 in our political system, the equivalent of that, in how many tentacles that Russia had in our elective process. Are you concerned about that?
I'm concerned about a lot of things.
What does Congress need to do about it?
Well, a few things. One is, this goes back, the Russian involvement, if you will, goes back to 2014, frankly, during the Obama administration. From a number of different standpoints, the people they tried to reach, and also, as we know, through social media. And social media, as we know, is a great indicator on how people are influenced, because, like it or not, that is how today a lot of people, or a fair number of people, get their information is through social media. So when you read something on social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media platform, you don't know whether it's real or not. You may not know whether it's legitimate. So I think a lot of times legislators lag behind the technology companies. The technology companies need to step up and in some way to prevent that from happening.
Some are calling on the president to step up. You know, that if there's one interpretation he could actually gain some political ground from, is say, after looking at the Mueller report, say, we've got to do something about this adversary having such a large role in our election process. Would you agree with that?
I think it's not only the Russians. I'm concerned about other entities trying to influence different elections. I'm concerned about the Chinese stealing our technology, and it's something that I've been working with on my committee.
All right, we'll leave it there. I want to ask you about your political ambitions. There was a report in Politico that said someone who is familiar with your thinking. I love when sources get quoted like that. Someone familiar with your thinking says that you are considering running for Lamar Alexander's U.S. Senate seat.
Well, first of all,
is someone familiar with your thinking?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking. I tell you, it's always flattering to see that stuff. I think you never say no. I really enjoy the job that I'm doing, and I'm working hard. I'm running for re-election to Congress.
If former Governor Haslam decides not to run, can I ask you that question again? What would your response be? How much is that weighing in your decision?
I don't, at this point, I don't know. I would say I enjoy doing the job. I plan to run for re-election. I guess you never shut the door on anything, but I'm running for re-election to Congress.
I also want to give you a quick chance to talk about robocalls. This is a legislation that you personally are sponsoring and feel pretty passionately about. I know consumers are pretty tired of them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Consumer Reports this month, their feature story was on robocalls. I'm concerned because it's really become a safety and security issue. The experts estimate that this year, we're going to receive about 45% of the calls that we get are these robocalls, and they're spoofed or spammed. So they could be coming, Richard, from anywhere, but they're disguised to look like they're coming from your community, your neighborhood, your family. In fact, your own number can come up as if it's calling you. And they're all kind of different scams. If you answer the call, a lot of people now they won't answer a call unless they recognize the number. But they're all kind of scams. If there's any bill that should pass on a bipartisan basis, it is this bill. But you go back to what you talked about earlier. To get floor time, you've got to have legislative time to do it. The more the Democrats focus on Bob Mueller, the harder it is for me to pass good legislation like the one that I'm trying to pass.
Trust Congressman Kustoff to bring it full circle. All right, very good. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much for being with us. We
thank you very much.
All right, we'll be right back with our roundtable in just a moment.
If you've been injured in an accident, the insurance company's going to find you, and they're going to wave some fast cash under your nose to blind you to the fact that they are stealing your rights forever. Don't you let them do that to you. You need to get somebody who's not afraid to stand up and fight for you to get you every dollar you deserve. Pick up the phone and call me now, JMB. I love a good fight. 888-WE-FIGHT.
It's our spring sale at Family Leisure.
Patio furniture, we've got it all. Chat height to bar height and everything in between. Seating for 8 to 10 or more, not a problem. Check out our huge in-stock selection of deep seating and sectional groups. Customizable to fit your space. Make a splash. Pools and spas are priced to move. Save 30% on in-stock pool tables, bars, and other game room items. Fire pits, barbecue islands, and grills also on sale now.
Spring sale going on now at Family Leisure.
I could tell you about my education and qualifications. I could tell you that I've received over $1 million from my clients from some of the strongest, most powerful insurance companies in America. But what I want to tell you right now is that when you select the Reeves Law Firm, you're not only a client, you're a part of our family. I have gone to war for my country, and I'm prepared to go to war for you. Call me immediately at 901-352-0333 or find me at beyourvoice.com. Let us be your...
For the first time ever, the NFL Draft comes to ABC.
Darrell Henderson, arguably the most explosive player in college football last season. Tony Pollard, just versatile. He'll punish you. As a receiver, he'll strike you. Trevon Tate, offensive lineman, just athletic. Very moment, Curtis Akins. Pass coverage, Akins has the speed to blanket you.
With appearances by Luke Bryan and Bobby Bones. Robin Roberts and the College Game Day crew host the NFL Draft live on ABC.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
A lot to get to with my roundtable today. Let me start by introducing my panel. We have Reverend Kenneth Whalen with the New Olivet Worship Center, Susan Adler-Thorpe, a political consultant with Thorpe Communications, and Local 24's political analyst, Otis Sanford. So how about that interview with Congressman David Kustoff? You all were here listening in on that. I will tell you what, I've been interviewing him for years and years, and I can never get him to say anything bad about a fellow Republican.
I whispered to them that he was on the party line. He's towing it really good, man. But he's consistent.
He's very good at that. Yes, he is. We'll give him that. But let's talk about the overall reaction. Pretty much predictable when you look at the delegation representing the Memphis area, Mississippi 2. We went to Congressman Steve Cohen and asked him what he thought about it. He thinks maybe we need to look at a censure, not impeachment anymore. He also made the comment that Donald Trump knew about as much about the obstruction of justice as a Jew knows about barbecue pork.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man. Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah. So,
you should have left that one.
Yeah.
we also tried to reach two of the women senators representing Mississippi and Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn and Cindy Hyde-Smith. Their offices did not return our calls to give a comment. Lamar Alexander, we asked him to weigh in on this, and he said basically it's time for the Democrats to stop hyperventilating on this topic and to focus more on issues that matter, like college education and that kind of thing. So, Otis, you take this first.
Well, Richard, it just shows you where the country is. We're woefully divided. There are two camps here, the never Trumpers and the always Trumpers. There is a group in the middle, though. There's a third group that may not like the president, but they're trying to keep an open mind. Where David Kustoff is concerned, he's saying exactly what his constituents in rural 8th District want him to say. He's going to defend the president to no end. But any reading, and I'm reading the report, hadn't gotten through it, but any sensible person looking at that easily can conclude that the president has lied repeatedly, that he tried to get other people to lie, that he tried to obstruct justice, even if people around him either refused to do it or refused to follow those orders. But some of them did lie, like Sarah Sanders. She admitted to Mueller that she lied. Again, this is really going to have to be decided, I believe, in the election of 2020. I don't think that there is any appetite for impeachment proceeding.
I talked to Democrats as well, and they're tired of it, Susan. They don't want to hear about it anymore.
About Mueller's report?
The Mueller report or the Russia investigation anyway.
Maybe not this weekend since it's been a holiday weekend, but after Congress gets back into session, we'll hear plenty about it, and the Democrats will want to hear plenty about it. Remember, the Democrats now are the majority in the House, and David Kustoff belongs to the minority. He's the backbencher, so he's going to do what he can to criticize, and he and his Republican colleagues will do what they can to obstruct, shall we say, the process of Mueller's report going through the House and calling Mueller in for a hearing. I heard David say that why bring Mueller back, that he's done everything he could. We now know everything. Well, for the same reason, why did you bring Hillary Clinton in? Why do you bring lesser people in who have much less to say to you? You do it because you want a clearer, better understanding of the person who wrote the report. One other thing, Otis is right. David represents probably arguably the most conservative district in Tennessee.
Well, no one's disputing that. It's a representative democracy, and it's his job to represent.
And he has to represent the people who voted for him, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm a part of that third group Otis talked about. I'm not extreme either way. I'm a person that's trying to maintain an open mind. And when I maintain an open mind, I look at it. 2 years, $25 million. And essentially where we are is, well, y'all can pursue it if you want to. That's what Mueller's saying to Congress. Well, they could have started pursuing it 2 years ago, and maybe we'd be at some kind of resolution by now. I think David is correct about one thing. I think the longer it drags out, I think the more the Democrats, and they are in control of the House, the more they push for investigation, the more it plays into Trump's hands. I think the longer it goes on, the stronger position he's going to be in for 2020.
Well, that's the same kind of argument they had back when Richard Nixon was, you were too young to remember, he was in office.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And that was the same kind of argument that came from the Republicans at the time against the Democrats. So we'll have to let it play its course.
We'll let it play its course and see what happens. All right, let's talk about vouchers, school vouchers. A lot of action on that at the State House in this past week. First of all, we had the Attorney General for the state, Herbert Slattery, weigh in on this. He refuses to issue a question, answer a question on the legality of the ESA bill. He says he's worried about the threat of litigation, specifically the legality of whether children of illegal immigrants cannot take advantage of the voucher program and whether that would violate federal law. So he's stepping aside. And then in the two state houses, this bill is taking so many different shapes in the House and the Senate. You know, in the House version, there's a question about whether how many students should be involved, and they say 15,000. The Senate version says maybe we need to go up to 30,000. There's a question about how much money is this going to take, and that ranges from 75 million to 125 million. Should this be for rural counties or just the big four counties, the ones that have the most population? Should homeschooled kids be included? The bills differ on this. And of course, the big federal question, should children of illegal immigrants be excluded from the school voucher program? So, Reverend Whalum, you feel passionately about this. You are in favor of school vouchers. Where are you on some of these questions? They're important questions.
Well, the bill that the governor presented is not going to be in that form by the time it gets through all the machinations of the House and the Senate. But I will say that if we are not going to fix K through 12, and obviously we're not going to fix K through 12. The most recent statistics show that 50%, fully 50% of graduates of schools in Memphis and Shelby County are not prepared for college, not ready to succeed in life. But we're obviously not going to fix it. We're going to talk about it and keep kicking the can down the road. So let's at least educate some of our children by any means necessary. If that means vouchers, fine. If that's charter schools, fine. I am so tired of penalizing all of our children because some people don't want to see the administrative bureaucracy of school boards and LEAs perpetuated.
Susan?
Well, I am one of those in the middle on school vouchers. I can go for them or I wouldn't go for them. The arguments are on both sides. But what I understand is that now they're focusing on just starting the school voucher program in Nashville schools and Shelby County schools. I'm not quite sure how that'll work. But if I were a parent whose child was in a failing school, and I wanted my child to have the opportunity for a better education, then I would very much be in favor of this voucher program. There are private funds throughout the city where you can go and apply for funds to help you pay for private schools. And then the question becomes, which private schools? And are people going to create new schools equivalent to the old white flight schools that are not particularly good schools, so the administrators and those who create it are the ones who make the money? It's fraught with problems. But if it doesn't get out of the House and the Senate, the same bill, the same thing to the governor's going to lose on this.
What if they need you to quickly address that?
Two very quick points here. We're talking about $7,300, which is all they're offering here. To go to a really good private school, you're going to need a lot more than $7,300. Where's that money going to come from? I have no idea. Richard, all of the things that you laid out there is the reason why this bill should not pass this year. Bill Lee just got into office in January and he's pushing this. Let's give a year to really study this thing, come back in the summer and in the fall, be ready with something that's more unified next year, and then get it done.
Okay, we've got to leave it there. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the mayor's race.
My patio is begging for a new chair, and what my patio wants, my patio gets. For less, like that and that. I found the perfect patio chair at the perfect price. Here at home, where you'll find the biggest selection of styles at the best prices.
Your phone slides off the console and falls at your feet. Get the new Fastball. It's the magnetic mount that holds any device tight. Fastball combines a steel ball and magnetic socket to create the ultimate media mount. Now you can adjust your phone 360 degrees to any angle, any position, and your phone stays securely in place. Then releases with a light tug. Just pick your spot and stick it up. Then place the ultra-thin magnetic disc on the back of your phone or case. It's the perfect mount for tablets, too. Call and get the incredible Fastball for just $19.99. But wait, call right now and we'll double it to 2 absolutely free. That's 2 Fastball mounts for just $19.99. Call now.
Call 1-800-436-1968. That's 1-800-436-1968. Or visit myfastball.com. So call 1-800-436-1968 now.
We're celebrating the opening of the all-new Landers Ford South in South Haven
by putting everything from sales, service to parts on sale.
When the most respected brand in the Mid-South opens a new dealership, it's a big deal. Get our lowest prices of the year, top dollar for your trade, and lock in the lowest interest rate available.
Reserve your vehicle now
at LandersMemphis.com.
Hurry in to our big deal event.
And remember, if it doesn't say Landers,
you paid too much.
I'm looking for a lamp I'll love. One that can really, light up a room. There. I found the perfect lamp and shade at the perfect price. Here, at home, where you'll find every style with the biggest selection at the best prices.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
All right, this week we learned money on hand by the candidates running for Memphis mayor. Let's go through the list quickly. Jim Strickland has about $780,000 on hand. Businessman LaMichael Wilson was next with more than $31,000. Shelby County Commissioner Tammy Sawyer, a little less than $20,000, and former Mayor Willie Harrington had a little under $7,000 on hand. So, Otis, you and I talked about this earlier this week. The surprise there is LaMichael Wilson, number 2.
Right. And he's raising a lot of small dollar amounts, but he still has a real uphill climb here. I'll say it again, this is still Jim Strickland's race to lose, and I just don't see him losing. I think the other three candidates will divide the pie, and Jim Strickland waltzes in for a second and final term.
Strickland has a lot of money, Susan.
Strickland has a lot of money, and if you're going to base this early on the race on money, of course it's Jim Strickland's, but I think you have to take a look that Tammy Sawyer, who's early, you know, she's new to politics basically. She has raised as much as Mayor Harrington has raised. This Michael Wilson, he may be at his peak. The question is really, where did he raise his money from?
Reverend Ken, you are a supporter of Tammy Sawyer. What do you make of these numbers?
I think we do the public a disservice by anointing people by the amount of money they raise. I think Tammy is a wild card because she has done what none of the other candidates have been able to do, and that is effectively mobilize an age group of voters that have never been involved in the process before, and I think that's the wild card.
She's got to get them to the polls.
She's got to get them to the polls.
That's my point.
That's the key. I don't see that.
That's the wild card, period.
And you admit that?
Absolutely.
Do you feel like she's got a good grassroots effort in the making?
Oh, it's proven that she's got a good grassroots effort in the making, and that is proven by the fact that she had people standing, blocking a highway on a bridge, doing things that people think are, oh my God, why would you do something like that? But it motivated the people who are disaffected by this system, and I think that's the wild card.
Okay, gotta leave it there. We'll be right back to wrap things up.
A drunk driver hit us head on. I am so glad that one of my family members told me to call the Reeves Law Firm. The jury awarded us $1.8 million.
If you or a loved one have been seriously injured, call us immediately. Let us be your voice.
Everyone who has ever lived has lived here. All of mankind's triumphs and failures. Every moment, every hometown, all here. We start our coverage on the ground and take it to the airwaves, so you always know what's happening in your own world and beyond. We are free TV and radio. We are breaking news. We are always there. We are broadcasters.
Life is just as powerful as the Lexus RX. As many safety features as the RX. The new Lexus RX has met its match.
If they're talking about you, you must be doing something right. Experience the style, craftsmanship, and technology that have made the RX the leading luxury SUV of all time.
Lease the 2019 RX 350 for $409 a month for 36 months.
Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
A drunk driver hit us head on. I am so glad that one of my family members told me to call the Reeves Law Firm. The jury awarded us $1.8 million.
If you or a loved one have been seriously injured, call us immediately. Let us be your voice.
For the first time ever, the NFL Draft comes to ABC.
Darrell Henderson, arguably the most explosive player in college football last season. Tony Pollard, just versatile. He'll punish you. As a receiver, he'll strike you. Trevon Tate, offensive lineman, just athletic. Very moment, Curtis Akins. Pass coverage, Akins has the speed to blanket you.
With appearances by Luke Bryan and Bobby Bones, Robin Roberts and the College Game Day crew host the NFL Draft live on ABC.
My thanks to Otis, Susan, and Reverend Ken. Happy Easter, happy Passover. Thanks to you for watching us this weekend. Our Ransom at localmemphis.com if you'd like to weigh in, whether you're joining us at 9 a.m. or at 10:35 p.m. Now, we appreciate you being here.